everyone. This book is called The Cat and the Bird. It's a children's book inspired by the artist Paul Klee. It's by Geraldine Elshner and Peggy, I think, Neal. So this book was inspired by by a painting by Paul Klee. But it's a storybook. I had everything I needed to be happy in my house with the blue shutters. I had a cozy basket, warm milk, and toys, grass to nibble on, and a shiny tag on my collar with my name engraved in it. But my perfect house was a gilded cage. I was locked up tight, the key turned around twice. So from morning to evening and evening to morning, I sat by the window and dreamed. The garden outside was so wonderfully beautiful. When I closed my eyes tight, I could sense the scent of the chestnuts, the red leaves of autumn, the soft carpet of moss beneath my paws, the murmuring of the stream, and high up in the treetop, you. How beautifully you sang. How deliciously beautiful. For ages, I would listen to you and lick my lips. I have to admit, I wanted to catch you very much. One stroke of my claws, a snap of the teeth, and crack. I felt I could already taste you in my mouth, completely, forever. But something inside me was even stronger than the urge to devour you. Deep inside, I envied you. You were free, free to fly wherever you wanted, to come and go as you pleased. You were free, and I was captive. So I devoured you only with my eyes, and then I called out to you, "Hello, bird. Your beak is so sharp, you can bore holes into the tree trunks. Why don't you peck the bars of my prison?" You answered me with a song. A cat in a cage, what a funny sight. But would I be wise to help you? How can I be sure that you won't eat me up? I looked at you straight in the eyes and said, I give you my word plain and simple, and a promise is a promise. This was enough for you. Peck, peck. Without a moment's hesitation, you began to peck away the bars of my cage. And soon I was free, scampering after you on the rooftop of my house with the blue shutters. Bounding from the tower to the bridge and the bridge to the chimney, I sprang to the edge of the horizon, and there I danced for joy in the moonlight. Thank you, little bird. I will never forget you. Your image will always be engraved in my memory, completely, forever. That's the end of the story, and here is the painting that inspired this story. It's called Cat and Bird, painted by Paul Klee in 1928, oil and ink on canvas. Now we're going to learn a little bit about Paul Klee. Paul Klee originally wanted to be a musician, and he learned to play the violin as a child. But in the end, he decided to study art. He attended the Kunstakademie Art Academy in Munich, where he began his studies by making drawings, caricatures, watercolors, and engravings. Paul's interest in music is reflected in his art, and even though Klee constantly makes artworks with both his right hand and his left hand, he never stopped playing the violin every day. Klee painted reality in his own way. He allowed himself to be inspired by nature, even if he did not transfer exactly what he saw onto the canvas. Paul assembled a large collection of plants that he studied carefully. His pictures contain plants, animals, and fields, and they often feature trees, which were more important to him. The artist's famous painting Magic Garden from 1926 is filled with natural-looking and fantastical plants, some of which are shown as simple areas of color. Even Paul's last name, Klee, is the German word for clover, a fitting reference to the natural world from which Paul never stopped learning. In 1914, Paul Klee wrote in his journal, "Color has possessed me. Color and I are one. I am a painter." He was in Tunisia at the time, where the light and intensity of the colors had inspired in him a revelation. From that point on, every color had its own significance, its own taste, and its own tone. These ideas also influenced Klee's fellow artists. Color would always remain vital to Paul, even though black strokes would begin to pervade his canvases and his life in 1933. Klee was a poet as well as an artist, and his poetry can be found in the wonderful titles of his pictures. These titles have the same playful quality as the lines, forms, and color harmonies of his artworks that frequently include letters and words. Paul shows us what his eye discerns underneath the surface of things, and he guides us into a fantastic realm of dreams. Art does not reproduce the visible, rather, it makes visible, he said. Klee was inspired and fascinated by everything, and he invites us to dive into his poetic version of the world. Was he famous during his lifetime? Yes, very much so. Starting in 1910, some of Klee's works were exhibited in his homeland of Switzerland. They appeared first in the Art Museum in Bern and later in other large Swiss cities. The magical painter, as Klee was called, became well known in France by 1925. In 1930, his works were shown in the USA at the Museum of Modern Art in New York. And even though the Nazis forced Klee into exile and condemned his paintings as degenerate, Paul's fame continued to grow after his death. Color, light, and poetry, everything in the work of this visionary painter still enchants viewers today. And what if the cat in our story had eaten the bird? Paul Klee loved cats. They fascinated him so much that he kept several at home with him. His own hunters with heart-shaped noses, just like the one in his painting. So what would Klee think if the cat in our tale had torn out the bird's feathers? Who knows? Perhaps, he might say, the bird would simply continue to sing in the depth of the cat's belly. The painter always retained a good sense of humor. And after all, the bird is merely the cat's dream, just as the moon is the sun's dream. So anything is possible.